Modern armies do not lose entire brigades in 9 days. Not in the age of satellite reconnaissance. Not with drone coverage. Not when you outnumber the defender 3-1. And yet, between February 4th and February 12th, 2026, the Russian 138th Motorized Rifle Brigade ceased to exist as a combat formation northwest of Kupiansk. 1,500 casualties, 47 armored vehicles destroyed, 12 artillery pieces turned to scrap, 9 days, 1 brigade, gone. And the worst part? Ukrainian forces knew it was coming before the first Russian engines started. I'm your host at Navy Battlefront, where we break down the most critical military operations shaping global power. Today, we're reconstructing one of the most devastating brigade-level defeats of the entire war in Ukraine. Not a slow attrition over months, not a gradual withdrawal under pressure, a full-scale annihilation in just over a week. And it happened because of 3 failures, one in intelligence, one in command, and one that nobody in Moscow wants to talk about. To understand what happened near Kupiansk, you need to understand what the Russian General Staff believed in late January 2026. After months of grinding positional warfare along the Oskil River line, Russian military intelligence, the GRU, assessed that Ukrainian forces in the sector northwest of Kupiansk had thinned significantly. Satellite imagery from January 28th showed reduced vehicle traffic along Ukrainian rear supply routes. Signals intelligence reported fewer encrypted radio transmissions from known Ukrainian command posts. A captured Ukrainian soldier from the 14th Mechanized Brigade, taken near Dvorichna on January 25th, stated under interrogation that his unit had been rotated out and replaced by a smaller territorial defense formation. The assessment seemed clear. The sector was weakening. The window was opening. What the GRU didn't know, what they couldn't know, was that the captured soldier's information was 5 days old. And in 5 days, everything had changed. On January 30th, Ukrainian military intelligence, the HUR, achieved something that would define the entire battle. Through a signals intercept operation that had been running for 11 weeks along the Luhansk sector, Ukrainian electronic warfare units captured a burst transmission from the headquarters of the Russian 6th Combined Arms Army. The transmission was encrypted using standard Russian military protocols. It took Ukrainian cryptanalysts approximately 19 hours to break it. What they found inside was an operational order, not a fragmentary order, not a preliminary planning document. A full operational order for an offensive designated Operation Severny Val, Northern Wave. It specified the unit, the 138th Motorized Rifle Brigade, reinforced with elements of the 3rd Tank Battalion from the 144th Motor Rifle Division. It specified the axis of advance, northwest of Kupiansk, targeting the junction between the villages of Sinkivka and Petropavlivka. It specified the timeline. H hour was set for 0430, local time on February 4th. It specified the objective: penetrate Ukrainian defensive lines to a depth of 12 kilometers, cut the T-2104 highway, and establish blocking positions that would threaten the northern approaches to Kupiansk itself. The order contained one more detail, one that would prove critical. It stated that Russian reconnaissance assessed Ukrainian defensive positions as lightly held, estimated at battalion strength with limited anti-armor capability. That assessment was based on drone surveillance footage captured on January 26th, 8 days before the planned assault. In modern warfare, 8-day-old intelligence might as well be 8 months old, because by February 1st, the Ukrainians had turned the sector into a trap. Brigadier General Oleksiy Tarnavsky, commanding the Ukrainian operational group responsible for the Kupiansk axis, received the decoded intercept on the evening of January 31st. He had 72 hours to prepare a defense against a full brigade assault, and to do it without alerting the Russians that their plan had been compromised. This was critical. If the Russians detected any unusual Ukrainian activity in the sector, additional vehicle movement, new earthworks, repositioning of artillery, they might delay or redirect the assault. Tarnavska needed the Russians to come. He needed them to come exactly where the operational order said they would. And he needed them to believe, right up until the moment of contact, that the sector was thinly held. So he moved at night. Only at night. Between January 31st and February 3rd, Ukrainian forces executed one of the most sophisticated defensive preparations of the war. Under strict radio silence and thermal camouflage protocols, 3 additional mechanized infantry companies moved into concealed positions along the tree lines, flanking the expected Russian axis of advance. Ukrainian combat engineers laid over 1,700 anti-tank mines in 3 overlapping belts across the approach corridors. The mines were buried using GPS-guided placement patterns, ensuring that any armored column advancing on a standard frontage would encounter mines at a density of approximately 30 per 100 meters. That's 3 times the NATO standard for a disruption minefield. This wasn't disruption. This was destruction. Simultaneously, Ukrainian artillery units pre-registered fire zones across every piece of open terrain between the Russian staging areas and the first line of Ukrainian positions. The term pre-registered sounds technical. What it means is simple. Ukrainian gunners had already calculated the exact coordinates, elevation, and charge settings needed to drop shells precisely on specific patches of ground. When the order came to fire, there would be no ranging shots, no adjustment. The first rounds would land exactly where they needed to. And then there were the drones. 43 FPV drone teams were positioned along a 12-kilometer front. Each team consisted of 2 operators, 1 pilot, 1 spotter, equipped with between 8 and 15 first-person view kamikaze drones. These weren't the large reconnaissance drones that dominate the headlines. These were small, fast, cheap, and lethal. Each one carried a modified RPG-7 warhead or a shaped charge capable of penetrating the top armor of any Russian infantry fighting vehicle. Total drone inventory across the 43 teams: over 500 units, 500 guided munitions, each one operated by a human pilot watching through a camera feed, capable of chasing a running soldier or diving into the open hatch of a vehicle. The trap was set. All that remained was for the Russians to walk into it. February 4th, 0417 hours local time, 13 minutes before H-hour. Russian artillery opened the assault with a preparatory bombardment. 114 shells, a mix of 152mm high explosive and cluster munitions, struck Ukrainian forward positions over a 7-minute period. The barrage was intended to suppress defensive fire and destroy exposed positions. It was textbook Soviet doctrine artillery preparation, and it hit almost nothing of value, because the Ukrainians weren't in their forward positions. They had pulled back to secondary fighting positions 300 meters behind the forward trench line. Positions the Russian drone surveillance from January 26th had never identified. At 0430, the first Russian mechanized wave crossed the line of departure. 2 battalion tactical groups advanced abreast on a frontage of approximately 4 kilometers. The northern column consisted of 14 BMP-3 infantry fighting vehicles and 6 T-72B3 tanks. The southern column fielded 12 BMP-2s, 4 T-80B-VMs, and a company of dismounted infantry moving on foot behind the armor. Total first wave strength: approximately 800 personnel, 36 armored vehicles, moving at 15 kilometers per hour across open farmland toward what they believed was a weakened defensive line. They made it 1,100 meters. At 0438, Ukrainian forward observers, concealed in camouflaged positions with direct line of sight to the Russian columns, transmitted a single coded word. 8 seconds later, the first Ukrainian artillery salvo landed, not near the Russian columns, on them. 12 155mm shells struck the northern column in a pattern so precise that 3 BMP-3s were hit within the first 15 seconds. The pre-registered fire zones worked exactly as designed. Russian vehicle commanders had no time to react, no time to disperse, no time to identify where the fire was coming from. The second salvo arrived 22 seconds later, then a third. Ukrainian artillery maintained a sustained rate of fire of 6 rounds per gun per minute across 8 guns. That's 48 shells per minute landing in a kill zone less than 500 meters wide. The northern column lost 7 vehicles in the first 3 minutes. Crews that survived the initial impacts began reversing or attempting to turn. 2 T-72B3 tanks veered right, off the planned route, seeking cover behind a low ridge. They drove directly into the first mine belt. The lead tank detonated a TM-62M anti-tank mine at 0442. The blast tore the left track assembly apart and ignited an external fuel tank. The second tank, following 20 meters behind, attempted to stop. Its driver succeeded. What the driver didn't know was that he had stopped his 60-ton tank directly on top of a second mine. The delayed fuse detonation buckled the hull floor. The crew bailed out, into the drone zone. The first FPV drone struck at 0443. A single operator, positioned in a tree line 1,400 meters to the east, guided a drone carrying a shaped charge directly into the dismounting tank crew. The footage, later posted on Ukrainian military channels, showed the drone descending at 70 kilometers per hour in a shallow dive. Impact was between 2 crew members attempting to reach a drainage ditch. Within the next 6 minutes, Ukrainian drone teams launched 31 FPV strikes against the northern column. 17 hit vehicles, 9 hit dismounted infantry, 5 missed or malfunctioned. But the effect was devastating. Russian soldiers who had survived the artillery and the mines now faced an invisible, silent threat that could appear from any direction, at any time, with zero warning. Intercepted radio communications from the northern column at 0451 captured a Russian platoon commander screaming into his radio. "They're everywhere. The drones are everywhere. We cannot move. We cannot move." The southern column fared no better. Advancing slightly behind the northern group, the southern BTG entered pre-registered fire zone Bravo at 0446. Ukrainian mortars, 60mm and 82mm, opened fire from concealed positions, targeting the dismounted infantry trailing behind the armored vehicles. Mortar fire is less precise than gun artillery. It doesn't need to be precise against infantry in the open. Within 4 minutes, the dismounted company had taken over 40 casualties. Soldiers scattered into shell craters and behind wrecked agricultural equipment. The BMP-2s pushed forward without infantry support. This is exactly what the Ukrainians wanted. Armored vehicles without infantry escort are blind in close terrain. When the BMP-2s reached the second mine belt at 0453, they had no dismounted engineers to detect or clear the mines. 3 vehicles detonated mines in quick succession. The remaining 9 stopped, engines idling, crews uncertain. They were stationary targets. Ukrainian ATGMs, Stugna P anti-tank guided missiles, engaged from prepared positions at ranges between 1,800 and 2,200 meters. 4 BMP-2s destroyed in 90 seconds. By 0510, 40 minutes after H-hour, the first wave of the Russian assault had effectively ceased to exist. The northern column had lost 14 of 20 vehicles. The southern column had lost 11 of 16. Total personnel casualties across both columns exceeded 260 in the first hour alone. And Russian command responded exactly as Ukrainian planners had predicted. They sent more. This is where the human factor enters the story, and where the true scale of the disaster begins to take shape. Colonel Viktor Morozov, commanding the 138th Motorized Rifle Brigade, reported the failure of the first wave to the headquarters of the 6th Combined Arms Army by 0530 on February 4th. According to intercepted communications reconstructed by Ukrainian intelligence, Morozov requested permission to pause the assault and conduct reconnaissance in force to identify the Ukrainian defensive layout. His request was denied. The response from 6th Army headquarters, relayed by Major General Sergei Kuznetsov, was unambiguous. Continue the assault. Commit the reserve battalion. The objective remained the T-104 highway. Why? Why would a corps-level commander order a second wave into a sector where the first wave had just been annihilated? The answer lies in something the Russian chain of command could not admit. Operation Severny Val was not a local initiative. It had been ordered from Moscow. The Russian General Staff had designated the Kupiansk axis as a priority effort for the winter offensive. Resources had been allocated. Timelines had been set. Reporting chains led directly to the Ministry of Defense. Abandoning the assault on day 1 would mean reporting failure on day 1. And in the Russian military system of 2026, reporting failure had consequences that terrified commanders far more than enemy fire. So Morozov committed his reserve. A fresh battalion tactical group, approximately 400 personnel with 18 armored vehicles, moved to the line of departure at 1400 on February 4th. This time, Russian planners adjusted the axis of advance slightly southward, hoping to bypass the kill zone that had destroyed the first wave. The adjustment was inadequate. Ukrainian drone surveillance tracked the repositioning in real time. By 1330, before the second wave had even departed its staging area, Ukrainian artillery had already re-registered fire zones along the new axis. The FPV drone teams shifted their positions accordingly, moving 4 teams south along prepared routes through the tree lines. The second wave lasted 2 hours and 14 minutes. It advanced 1,800 meters, 700 meters farther than the first wave. It encountered the same mine belts, the same pre-registered artillery, the same drone swarms. It lost 12 vehicles and approximately 170 personnel before Colonel Morozov ordered a withdrawal at 1614. Day 1 ended with the 138th Brigade having lost 26 armored vehicles and over 430 casualties, dead, wounded, and missing. They had gained 0 meters of Ukrainian-held territory, and the order from 6th Army headquarters remained unchanged. Continue. February 5th and 6th saw smaller probing attacks. Russian forces attempted to use electronic warfare to suppress Ukrainian drone operations, deploying 2 JTEL jamming systems forward. The jamming had limited effect. Ukrainian drone operators had anticipated electronic countermeasures and equipped approximately 60% of their FPV fleet with frequency-hopping guidance systems that could switch channels mid-flight. The JTEL systems disrupted perhaps 15 to 20% of drone launches. The remaining 80% continued to find targets. On February 6th, a Russian reconnaissance team of 12 soldiers attempted to infiltrate Ukrainian lines on foot under cover of darkness. They carried no heavy equipment, only personal weapons, night vision devices, and a thermal sight for identifying mine signatures. They were detected at 0215 by a Ukrainian ground surveillance radar, a Czech-made Vera-NG passive sensor that tracked the team's movement without emitting any signal they could detect. A Ukrainian ambush team waited at the tree line. 11 of the 12 Russian soldiers were killed or captured within 4 minutes. The 12th escaped and reported back. His report confirmed what Russian commanders should have already known. The Ukrainian defensive line was heavily fortified, deeply layered, and thoroughly prepared. The report was acknowledged. The order remained. Continue. February 7th, day 3 of the assault. Russian command made its most consequential decision. Rather than committing the 138th's remaining organic forces in another frontal assault, 6th Army headquarters authorized the attachment of a reinforcement package. 2 companies from the 144th Motor Rifle Division's 3rd Tank Battalion, plus a battery of 2 S-19 MSTAR self-propelled howitzers to provide dedicated fire support. The reinforcement brought an additional 22 armored vehicles and approximately 350 personnel to the operation. The plan for Day 3 was different. Russian forces would conduct a combined arms assault, armor, infantry, and artillery operating in coordination. The Mesta battery would suppress Ukrainian artillery positions while the armored force advanced. Electronic warfare units would attempt to create a corridor of reduced drone effectiveness. Engineers would advance with the lead elements to breach mine belts. On paper, it was a reasonable plan. In practice, it contained a fatal flaw. The Mesta battery was positioned 6 kilometers behind the line of departure, in a shallow valley that Russian planners assessed was beyond the range of Ukrainian counter-battery fire. They were wrong. Ukrainian forces had deployed 2 American-supplied 142 HIMARS launchers to the Kupiansk sector on February 3rd, moved in specifically because intelligence indicated a major Russian assault was imminent. The HIMARS launchers, firing GPS-guided GMLRS rockets with a range of 84 kilometers, could reach the Mesta battery with ease. At 0620 on February 7th, as the Russian combined arms assault began its advance, a Ukrainian counter-battery radar detected the Mesta battery's first firing position. 4 minutes later, a salvo of 6 GMLRS rockets struck the battery area. 3 of the 4 2S-19 self-propelled guns were destroyed instantly. The 4th sustained damage to its autoloader and ceased firing. In less than 5 minutes, the Russian assault had lost its dedicated artillery support. The armored force advanced without suppressive fire. Comment Intercept if you think the Ukrainian intelligence operation was the decisive factor in this battle. And subscribe to Navy Battlefront if you want to see how modern warfare is being reshaped by electronic intelligence. Without the Mesta battery, the February 7th assault replicated the pattern of Day 1, but with one additional element of horror. Russian combat engineers, advancing ahead of the armored column to breach mine belts, came under direct FPV drone attack while working in the open. Drone operators specifically targeted the engineers, recognizing that eliminating them would channel the armored vehicles into intact mine belts. 7 of the 12 engineers in the lead section were killed or wounded within the first 20 minutes. The mine-clearing effort collapsed. Russian tanks attempted to push through the mine belts without clearance, relying on their heavier armor to survive mine detonations. The T-80BVM's mine resistance is better than the BMP series. Its hull can generally survive a single TM-62M detonation without catastrophic kill. But mine detonations immobilize the vehicle, and an immobilized tank in a fire zone is a dead tank. 3 T-80BVM's detonated mines lost tracks and were destroyed by follow-up ATGM strikes within minutes. By midday, on February 7th, the reinforcement package from the 144th Division had lost 16 of 22 vehicles. Casualty figures for the day exceeded 300. February 8th and 9th brought what Ukrainian soldiers later described as the desperate days. Russian command, now fully aware that the assault was failing catastrophically, nonetheless continued to push forces forward in smaller packets, squad and platoon-sized elements attempting to infiltrate through gaps in the mine belts. These small unit attacks were less vulnerable to artillery, but extremely vulnerable to drones. FPV drone operators, by this point in the battle, had refined their tactics to a lethal efficiency. Teams operated in relay. One team would launch drones while the next team prepared fresh units. The kill chain from detection to strike averaged under 90 seconds. Intercepted radio communications from February 8th paint a picture of an army unraveling. A Russian lieutenant from the 138th 2nd Battalion transmitted at 1347. "We have no vehicles. We are on foot. There is no cover. Request permission to withdraw to the staging area." The response from battalion headquarters: "Permission denied. Hold current position and await further orders. The lieutenant's next transmission, at 14:23, was his last recorded communication. A Ukrainian drone struck his position 14 minutes later. On February 9th, a junior captain from the 138th Reconnaissance Company managed to establish a direct communication link with 6th Army headquarters, bypassing his own brigade command. In a transmission that was later intercepted and partially decoded by Ukrainian intelligence, the captain reportedly stated, "The brigade is combat ineffective. We have lost 60% of our armored vehicles and over 1,000 personnel. Continuing the assault is sending men to die for ground we cannot hold, even if we take it. I am requesting, I am begging, that you halt this operation." The transmission caused a brief pause. For approximately 6 hours on February 9th, no new orders were issued. Then, at 21:30 on February 9th, the final order came. Not to advance, not to withdraw, to hold current positions and transition to defense. The assault was over, but the dying wasn't. Over the next 3 days, February 10th through 12th, Ukrainian forces conducted systematic strikes against the remnants of the 138th Brigade's forward positions. Artillery targeted identified Russian command posts and logistics points. Drone teams continued to engage any movement in the former assault corridors. Russian forces attempted to evacuate wounded under cover of darkness, but Ukrainian thermal imaging drones made nighttime movement almost as dangerous as daylight operations. By February 12th, the 138th Motorized Rifle Brigade had been pulled back from the line entirely. A replacement unit, elements of the 21st Separate Motor Rifle Brigade, began occupying the sector. The final accounting was staggering. According to Ukrainian General Staff figures, cross-referenced with open-source vehicle loss tracking and intercepted Russian casualty reports, the 138th Brigade suffered approximately 1,500 total casualties over the 9-day period. This included an estimated 420 killed, 860 wounded, and over 200 missing, a category that in this war often means dead but unrecovered. The brigade lost 47 armored vehicles of all types: tanks, infantry fighting vehicles, armored personnel carriers, and engineering vehicles. It lost 12 artillery pieces, including the 4 Mesta guns destroyed on February 7th, and 8 additional towed and self-propelled guns hit by counter-battery fire and drone strikes throughout the battle. It lost an estimated 30 to 40 soft-skinned vehicles, trucks, fuel tankers, and command vehicles in rear area strikes. The Ukrainian side's losses were significantly smaller, but not negligible. Ukrainian forces in the sector suffered approximately 190 casualties, 41 killed, and the remainder wounded. 3 artillery pieces were lost to Russian counter-battery fire on February 5th. Drone attrition was high. Of the 500-plus FPV drones available at the start of the battle, over 400 were expended. Resupply of drone units became the primary logistical challenge by day 5, but the imbalance in losses, roughly 8-to-1 in personnel, over 15-to-1 in armored vehicles, represented one of the most lopsided engagements of the entire war. So, what went wrong? Not tactically, that's obvious. The question is systemic. 3 failures converged to produce the Kupiansk disaster. The first was intelligence. Russian reconnaissance of the Ukrainian defensive layout was based on data that was already stale before the operational order was even issued. The 8-day gap between the last drone surveillance and H-hour gave Ukrainian forces an enormous window to prepare. In modern warfare, where positions can be established in hours and minefields laid in a single night, 8-day-old intelligence is functionally useless. The GRU's assessment that the sector was lightly held was accurate as of January 26th. By February 4th, it was a death sentence. The second failure was communication security. The interception of Operation Severnivale's full operational order gave Ukrainian forces something that military planners dream of: perfect foreknowledge of the enemy's plan. The Russian military has known since at least 2022 that its communications are vulnerable to interception. Multiple instances of unsecured radio traffic, compromised encryption, and signals intelligence breaches have been documented throughout the war. And yet, the operational order for a brigade-level assault was transmitted using encryption protocols that Ukrainian cryptanalysts broke in less than 20 hours. Whether this represents a failure in Russian cryptographic technology, in operational security procedures, or in the simple human habit of underestimating the enemy, the result was the same. The Ukrainians knew everything. The third failure, the most consequential and the hardest to fix, was command culture. At every stage of the battle, Russian junior and mid-level officers recognized that the assault was failing. Colonel Morozov requested a pause on day 1. The reconnaissance team's survivor reported heavy fortifications on day 2. The captain's desperate plea on day 5 laid out the situation in terms that no competent military leader could misinterpret. And at every stage, the order from above was the same: continue. This is not a new problem. The Russian military's centralized command structure, its intolerance for initiative at lower levels, and its punishment of commanders who report failure have been documented by Western military analysts for decades. The Kupiansk disaster did not reveal a new vulnerability. It confirmed an old one. The system that sent the 138th Brigade into a prepared kill zone was the same system that sent poorly equipped conscripts into Grozny in 1994, that launched unsupported armored columns toward Kiev in February 2022. The technology changes. The vehicles change. The tactics change superficially. The fundamental command dysfunction does not. For the Ukrainian side, the battle near Kupiansk validated a defensive doctrine that had been evolving since the earliest months of the full-scale invasion. The combination of signals intelligence, pre-registered artillery, mine warfare, and massed FPV drone operations created what Western military observers have begun calling the integrated denial zone, a defensive construct where every layer of defense reinforces every other layer. Artillery drives vehicles into mines. Mines immobilize vehicles for drones. Drones eliminate engineers who might clear mines. Each element of the defense makes the others more lethal. Breaking through requires not just overcoming one system, but defeating all of them simultaneously. The 138th Brigade tried to overcome them sequentially. It was destroyed sequentially. The diplomatic consequences were immediate. On February 14th, 2 days after the battle effectively ended, Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova dismissed Western reporting on the battle as information warfare fabrications, but intercepted internal Ministry of Defense communications, portions of which were published by Ukrainian intelligence on February 20th, told a different story. The commander of the 6th Combined Arms Army, Major General Kuznetsov, was quietly relieved of his position on February 16th. His replacement was not publicly announced for 3 weeks. Colonel Morozov of the 138th Brigade was also removed from command, though in his case, the reason may have been less about blame and more about the fact that there was no longer a brigade to command. In Washington, the battle was cited in a House Armed Services Committee hearing on February 19th as evidence supporting continued military aid to Ukraine. Representative Michael Waltz described the Kupiansk engagement as demonstrating that Ukrainian forces, properly equipped and properly informed, can inflict catastrophic losses on Russian offensive operations at minimal cost. The Biden-era debate about whether Western weapons were prolonging the conflict was, at least temporarily, overshadowed by the tactical reality. The weapons were working. But the tale of the Kupiansk battle extends beyond diplomacy. It extends into doctrine. Russian military planners are studying what happened, and they are not stupid. The vulnerability of armored formations to drone swarms was already known before Kupiansk. The vulnerability of communications to interception was already known. What Kupiansk demonstrated was the lethality of these vulnerabilities in combination, and the catastrophic cost of failing to adapt. Since February 2026, open-source analysts have noted changes in Russian assault tactics in other sectors: smaller unit sizes, more dispersed formations, greater use of armored vehicles with improvised anti-drone cages, and, crucially, shorter gaps between reconnaissance and assault. The Russians are learning, slowly, expensively, in blood, but learning. The Ukrainians face their own challenge. The Kupiansk defense consumed enormous quantities of material: over 400 FPV drones, thousands of artillery shells, hundreds of mines. These resources are finite and dependent on Western supply chains. A defense that costs 190 casualties but expends 400 drones and several thousand rounds of precision ammunition is sustainable only as long as the ammunition keeps arriving. If Western support falters, the integrated denial zone becomes impossible to maintain. The tactical victory masks a strategic dependency. Comment "Brigade" if you think this battle will change how Russia plans future offensives. Subscribe to Navy Battlefront for full breakdowns of the operations reshaping modern warfare. And there is one more tale, one that doesn't appear in official reports or congressional testimony. Somewhere in Russia, 1,500 families received notifications in February 2026. Some received official death notices. Some received wounded in action telegrams. Some received nothing at all. Their sons, husbands, and fathers simply listed as missing. The 138th Motorized Rifle Brigade was reconstituted in March 2026 with fresh conscripts and mobilized reservists. A new unit number on the same organizational chart. Fresh vehicles from storage depots in the Urals. New soldiers who have never seen the mine belts northwest of Kupiansk. The brigade exists again on paper. Whether it exists as a fighting force is a question that will be answered the next time Moscow decides to test the Ukrainian lines. 9 days, 1,500 casualties, 47 armored vehicles, 1 brigade. The numbers are precise. The lesson should be clear. In 2026, attacking a prepared defense with stale intelligence, compromised communications, and a command structure that punishes honesty is not a military operation. It is organized destruction of your own forces. And until that command structure changes, truly changes, not just shuffles generals, the next brigade sent forward will meet the same fate. Different name, different sector, same result. The mines are already in the ground. The drones are already charged. The artillery coordinates are already registered. The only question is who walks into them next.